There is a truth soft as a whisper but mighty as the tide. Forgiveness is oxygen, and without it love suffocates. Imagine, if you will, a heart clenched tight, fists wrapped around old wounds, refusing to release the hurt. That heart, dear souls, is a heart that cannot breathe. Love cannot live where forgiveness is denied, just as a flame cannot burn without air. We have all known the ache of betrayal, the sting of words that cut deep, the scars that linger long after the wound has closed. But hear me now, to withhold forgiveness is to lock yourself in a room with no windows, no doors, and slowly, surely, the love inside you, bright and boundless, will gasp for air. Forgiveness is not weakness. Oh no, it is the bravest act of the human spirit. It is the unshackling of chains, the opening of hands that have held pain too long. It is saying, I will not let this hurt define me. I will not let it steal my capacity to love. And when we forgive, when we forgive, we do not just free the one who wronged us. We free ourselves. We take the first full breath in years, and suddenly love can dance again. Love can sing. Love can live. So I ask you today, where is your heart gasping? Where have you closed the windows of mercy and let the air grow stale? Choose forgiveness, beloved. Choose it fiercely. Choose it freely. Because a world without forgiveness is a world where love cannot breathe. And we who were made for love, let us begin. Love is a living thing, wild and delicate, fierce and fragile, beating like a heart between two people. But just as flowers cannot bloom without water, love cannot survive without mercy. Without forgiveness, love suffocates slowly, gasping for air in the tight grip of resentment. Think of the most beautiful relationship you've ever known. One that made your soul feel seen. One that made your laughter come easy. Now imagine that same relationship with all the warmth drained out of it, replaced by cold silence, by unspoken hurts piling up like stones. That is what happens when mercy runs dry. Love may still be there, but it is love on life support, love struggling to take its next breath. Bitterness is a poison. It doesn't just sit quietly in the corner. It spreads. It turns tender words into weapons. It turns small misunderstandings into battle lines. It takes the past, the mistakes, the wounds, the moments when someone let you down, and uses them like bricks to build a wall between you and the person you once cherished. And the tragedy? You become both the prisoner and the jailer. You lock yourself in with your own hurt, and then wonder why love feels so far away. But mercy, mercy is the key to the cell. Mercy says, you don't have to be perfect for me to love you. Mercy whispers, I see your flaws and I choose you anyway. Mercy is the oxygen that keeps love's fire burning. Without it, even the strongest love grows weak. Even the brightest connection dims. I've watched relationships crumble not because the love wasn't real, but because the forgiveness ran out. Couples who once moved in sync now stepping on each other's wounds. Friends who knew each other's souls now speaking in careful, guarded sentences. Families where the silence between them grows louder than words ever could. It's not that love disappeared. It's that mercy stopped showing up to keep it alive. Here's the truth. Love is not a one-time decision. It's a daily practice, a choice you make over and over again, especially when it's hard. And mercy is the heartbeat of that choice. It's the courage to say, what we have is bigger than this hurt. It's the strength to lay down your right to be right, to trade your bitterness for peace, to choose connection over pride. Think of the relationships in your life right now, the ones that matter, the ones you couldn't bear to lose. Are you feeding them with mercy or starving them with stubbornness? Are you watering them with grace or letting them wither under the heat of old grudges? Love doesn't die suddenly. It fades slowly, one withheld forgiveness at a time. But the miracle is this: it's never too late to breathe life back into what matters. One act of mercy can change everything. One choice to forgive can crack open the door and let the light back in. Love is resilient. It wants to live, to heal, to grow, but it needs you to give it room. It needs you to loosen your grip on the past so it can stretch toward the future. So ask yourself today, where is love gasping for air in your life? Where have you let bitterness take up space that mercy should be filling? Don't wait until it's too late. Don't wait until the silence is so loud you can't remember how to break it. Love is worth fighting for, not with weapons, but with open hands. Not with walls, but with bridges. Not with judgment, but with grace. Because love without mercy is like a body without breath. It may still look alive, but the spark is gone. And you were made for more than that. You were made for love that breathes deep, that runs free, that rises unshackled into the light. There is a lie we tell ourselves, that forgiveness is surrender, that to forgive means we are weak, that we are letting the one who hurt us off the hook. But I am here to tell you the truth. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is the bravest battle you will ever fight. It is standing in the fire of your pain and choosing, with trembling hands and a fierce heart, to walk out unburned. Think of the last time someone wounded you. Maybe it was a betrayal that cut deep, words that left scars, an abandonment that made you question your worth. The hurt was real, the anger was justified, and in that moment, holding on to the pain felt like holding on to power, as if by refusing to forgive you were keeping them accountable, making sure they couldn't just walk away unscathed. But here is what no one tells you. Unforgiveness is not a weapon. It is a weight. And while you're busy carrying it, the person who hurt you, they have already moved on. Forgiveness takes courage because it asks you to do the hardest thing, to lay down the armor of your anger and step forward, unguarded into healing. It is easier to stay bitter. It is easier to nurse the grudge, to replay the hurt, to let it shape your story. But courage doesn't choose easy. Courage chooses freedom. And freedom begins the moment you say, I will not let this pain live inside me any longer. I have seen what happens when someone finds that courage. I have watched eyes once clouded with resentment, clear with relief. I have seen shoulders heavy with the burden of old wounds finally straighten. I have heard laughter return to voices that had forgotten how to sing. Because forgiveness is not about the past, it is about the future. It is about refusing to let what happened to you dictate who you become. Let me be clear, forgiveness does not mean what they did was okay. It does not mean you have to trust them again, or let them back into your life, or pretend the hurt never happened. Forgiveness is not for them, it is for you. It is your declaration that you will no longer be held hostage by their actions, that you are reclaiming your joy, your peace, your right to move forward unshackled. And oh, the strength that takes, to look pain in the face and say, you do not own me. To wake up one morning and decide that today is the day you stop feeding the anger and start feeding your soul. To choose, again and again, to release the hurt instead of reliving it. That is not weakness, that is warrior's work. So ask yourself, where in your life are you being called to that kind of courage? Where is the weight of unforgiveness holding you back from the life you were meant to live? You don't have to do it all at once. Forgiveness is not a single act, it is 1,000 small choices, a daily turning toward the light. Start where you are. Start with one breath, one release, one moment of saying, I choose me. Because you, my friend, were not made to carry this weight forever. You were made to rise. You were made to heal. You were made to take that broken piece of your heart and with courage as your compass, turn it into something whole again. The world is waiting for the unburdened, unstoppable, radiant you, the one who had every reason to stay bitter but chose instead to be free. Close your eyes and imagine throwing a single pebble into a still pond. Watch how that small splash sends ripples moving outward, growing wider and wider until they touch every shore. Now open your eyes and understand this. Your choice to forgive works exactly the same way. What looks like one small act of mercy in your hands becomes a tidal wave of healing that can wash through families, communities, even history itself. We always underestimate the power of our forgiveness. We think it's just about us and the person who hurt us, as if grace happens in a vacuum. But every time you choose mercy over bitterness, you're not just changing your story, you're altering the DNA of relationships you can't even see. That anger you refuse to pass on, it stops with you. That grudge you choose not to nurse, it won't poison the next generation. That forgiveness you offer freely, it becomes someone else's lifeline when they're drowning in their own pain. I've seen this miracle with my own eyes. The mother who forgave her alcoholic father breaks the chain so her children never learn to hate. The boss who forgives an employee's mistake creates a culture where people aren't afraid to grow. The neighbor who forgives a racial slight becomes the bridge between divided communities. None of them knew how far their mercy would travel, but each act of forgiveness planted seeds in soil they'd never walk on. Right now, someone is watching how you handle your hurt. Your children are learning what to do with betrayal by seeing what you do with yours. The clerk at the store, the new hire at work, the stranger in the elevator. They may only see you for 5 minutes, but in those 5 minutes, they'll witness either the prison of bitterness or the liberation of grace. What will they remember? Here's the secret history books don't teach. The most powerful revolutions don't begin with protest or petitions. They begin when one wounded person looks at their pain and says, "This stops with me." The civil rights movement wasn't just built on marches. It was built on millions of daily decisions to forgive instead of retaliate. Every healed family tree starts with one brave soul who refused to pass down the anger they inherited. You think your forgiveness is small? It's the quiet earthquake that reshapes the emotional landscape of everyone who comes after you. But you have to understand, this ripple effect works both ways. Unforgiveness spreads just as far. That grudge you're holding, it's teaching your little brother how to hold his. That cold war in your marriage, it's showing your daughter what love looks like. That resentment you rehearse daily, it's leaking into how you treat the waitress, the customer service rep, the stranger who cuts you off in traffic. Hurt that isn't healed is always transferred. Today you stand at the most powerful crossroads imaginable. With every choice to forgive, you're not just healing your past. You're pre-forgiving wounds that haven't even happened yet. You're stocking an invisible mercy bank where your grandchildren will make withdrawals you'll never see. That text you sent to make peace, it's a time capsule of grace. That apology you offer without being asked, it's a landmark on someone else's map. That bitterness you finally release, it's a curse broken over people whose names you don't yet know. So I beg you, don't measure your forgiveness by what it costs you today. Measure it by the harvest it will grow in soil you'll never touch. The world doesn't need more anger, more scorekeeping, more reasons to stay broken. What the world needs is your brave, irrational, revolutionary mercy. Throw that pebble, start those ripples, become the healing that flows far beyond your reach. Because grace is the only thing that multiplies when you give it away. And your forgiveness today may be the answer to someone's prayer 50 years from now. The pond is waiting, the stone is in your hand, and somewhere on a distant shore you've never seen, the water is already beginning to stir. There is a moment that changes everything. When the last mistake has been made, the last harsh word spoken, the last betrayal revealed, and two souls stand at the cliff's edge of what was, staring into the unknown of what could still be. This is the moment when love is no longer a feeling but a decision. This is the sacred ground where second chances are born. We've all been there, on one side or the other. Maybe you were the one who messed up, who let anger speak louder than love, who failed in the exact way you promised you never would. You braced for rejection, for the door to slam shut, for the relationship to shatter like glass. But then, grace happened. Someone looked at your worst moment and said, "I choose to believe in more than this." That moment didn't just save you, it transformed you. Or maybe you were the one holding the broken pieces, standing over the wreckage of trust, with every right to walk away, but something in you, something deeper than pain, stronger than pride, whispered, "This isn't the end of the story." So you took a breath, dug your hands into the mess, and began the holy work of rebuilding. Not because you had to, not because the other person deserved it, but because love is never about what people have earned. It's about what they can become. Second chances are where love proves itself. Anyone can love perfection. Anyone can stay when it's easy. But to look at someone's failure and say, "You're worth more than your worst moment," that is love in its purest, most powerful form. That is the kind of love that doesn't just restore, it resurrects. Think of the people who gave you second chances when you didn't deserve them. The teacher who saw your potential, even after you failed the test. The parent who kept loving you through your rebellious phase. The friend who answered the phone at 2 a.m. even after months of silence. Those moments didn't just give you another opportunity, they gave you back to yourself. They reminded you that you were more than your mistakes. That's the power you hold when you offer someone else a second chance. You're not just saving a relationship, you're saving a person. But let's be honest, second chances are terrifying. To forgive is to risk being hurt again. To trust again is to make yourself vulnerable. And that's why second chances aren't foolish, they're fearless. They require the courage to believe in redemption even when the evidence is against it. They demand the strength to plant seeds in what looks like barren soil and trust that something can still grow. I've seen what happens when someone is given that gift. The husband who cheated and was forgiven. Not instantly, not easily, but was given the chance to earn back trust, day by day, until his marriage became stronger than before. The addict who relapsed, but found arms still open, hands still reaching, until sobriety finally took root. The friend who betrayed, but was met with grace instead of revenge, and became the most loyal companion you've ever known. These aren't exceptions, they're proof that people can rise to the love that believes in them. Here's the truth so many miss. Second chances don't mean ignoring boundaries or tolerating abuse. They don't mean forgetting or pretending. They mean looking at someone's failure and saying, "This doesn't have to be the end of you or of us." They mean leaving the door cracked for transformation instead of slamming it shut. So ask yourself today, who in your life needs you to believe in them just a little longer? Where have you written the end over a story that might still have miracles left? You don't have to ignore the past, but you can refuse to let it have the final word. Because love isn't love until it's tested. Forgiveness isn't forgiveness until it costs you something. And people can become more than their failures, but only if someone is brave enough to give them the chance to prove it. The world is full of abandoned relationships, discarded people, broken connections that could have been mended. Don't let yours become one of them. Be the kind of love that sees beyond the mess and into the miracle waiting to happen. After all, the best love stories aren't about people who never fell. They're about people who got back up, reached for each other's hands, and discovered that the ground between grace and redemption is where love grows strongest.